Like somebody would be like, pass me the Johnny. And I'm like, okay, then what's a Johnny? And they're like, a gown? And even when you say a gown, they're not even so sure sometimes what you're talking about. You know, you have to literally sit down in the G, a gown, for them to actually, understand that gown and gown is the same thing. But, as I say, you just have to understand that different places, they use the same word, but how they put an accent to it, how they say it is a total different interpretation. And so you just have to understand how things are when you're transitioning. Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Think Nursing channel. My name is Stacey Ann and I am a nurse. I am an international nurse who transitioned from Jamaica to the US. Today I'm going to share with you, nursing transition to the US here, my experience, with cultural transitioning. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, I would love for you to go ahead and subscribe, turn that notification bell on, and remember to leave a like, a share, and comment. I want to hear the stories or experiences of other persons who have transitioned here, and what you expected, what you didn't really expected, what was an eye-opener for you. Just go ahead and share it in the comment here so we can have a discussion regarding that. I've done some live streaming, and that also highlight bits and pieces of content related to nursing, immigration, and my experience here. We talk a lot about different topics, so just check out the links for the live stream in the section that is called live on my channel here, and you'll see about 4 videos where we're like literally just chit-chatting with other persons on the live about different topics related to nursing. All right, so when I got here, I transitioned here in 2016 from Jamaica to the US, and that was a big transition for me. Cultural transitioning is very difficult, and especially if you're not really a people person, then sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge for you when you get here. If you see me looking down, I'm just using some key points to help with guiding this conversation. All right. So when I first moved here to the US, I was in Florida, and I also did a cultural transition course there where they kind of just, introduce us to a few things. But then, moving from a country to another, it is always going to be a case where you're feeling anxious, because you're not so sure what to expect. And that was just the same for me. Any person, you're going into a new job, you're going to a new country, whatever it is, the situation is always going to be a case where you might have a little bit of an anxiety. You want to know what if, and so when I got here, you're going to realize that, patients ask a lot of questions. They go on the internet and they research. These patients are so involved in their care. And that was just something that was totally different for me. Going to a patient and trying to medicate that patient with a medication. They might recommend things to you, or they may just simply ask you, why doing this rather than this? So that was a little bit of a shocker for me when I got here, because as I say, nurses or the health team in Jamaica, they guide the management of these patients, and patients just accept it. And it was more of like a casual setting where you just go over, introduce yourself, and you just say, okay, I'm giving you your medication, and the patient was okay with it, take it, and then that's it. But here it was totally different, and so you just have to get accustomed to that. If you never used to talk up much to your patient, you realize that you're going to have to discuss a lot of things, explain to them why you're doing this, why you're giving them that, because of how the culture here is. Another thing that was different for me was, when it comes down to, addressing your providers. In Jamaica, we're accustomed to using last name. We say doctor, we say nurse. That was a big thing for me when I got here. And even to date, I still refer to my, nurses. Sometimes I'll say nurse X, and I still refer to my doctors as Dr. X. A lot of times the doctors might not like it, but you see, because you're accustomed to something, you will continue doing it. But you just have to understand the culture here. It is totally different because persons, refer to each other on a first name basis. And it's the same thing when I was in the state of Maine, there was a doctor there. He could have been my granddad. And because, say, for example, his name is Ezra. Ezra is usually, more likely related to a older person or something like that, So if you hear that name, you're going to want to be like, okay, then I'm going to refer to this person as Mr. Ezra or Brother Ezra or Uncle Ezra. You're going to add something to the name. So it was the same thing for that doctor in Maine. At the time when I moved there, like everybody was like saying Ezra. And I was like, oh my word, that is just like a big disrespect in my culture, because you could never walk up to a elderly person or older person and be like, Ezra, call them by the first name, because, the culture there is not that. You have to address them as Miss, Mr., Mrs., or doctor, nurse, and then their last name. But here in the US, understanding the culture is that you address them by their first name, and that is just something that you have to get used to. All right, some of the doctors, they don't really complain if you call them Dr. X, but just saying, it is their traditional, way of doing things and their culture. So we just have to kind of adjust and adapt to the changes when you get here. Being homesick, or it was just like something else that you have to deal with. So in one way, in order for me to kind of help with not getting too sick of leaving home, was try to make sure that I, continue cooking, my Jamaican food. So that is one thing I would encourage person to do. If it means that you're gonna spend one day of the week and enjoy some Jamaican food or whatever culture you're from, go ahead and cook it. Because yes, it might be difficult for you to maintain that cultural meal, but at least it will kind of bring some form of, comfort to you, knowing that you're still holding on to something that really means a lot or you cherish a lot. Another thing is, the music. That was one thing as well. And then, try to find other persons in your community or the facility that you're at to interact with them, especially international nurses, because as I say, it can be very lonely when you get here. So even if you're from Jamaica, you might find somebody else from Africa who is transitioning here, and you can build a bond, a relationship, and that's how you form a community of international nurses. A lot of hospitals also, they do have like International Nurses Day or International Day, where they celebrate, all the international folks. And so that is just one way for you to build and bond and make sure you're keeping that connection. Another thing is, when it comes on to the English language, even though we speak English here in Jamaica, then, there are different ways it is actually spoken. You have to understand the different slangs, the accents that come with it, medical jargons, the use of them, because everywhere it's totally different. When they said past the Christmas tree, I'm like, okay, then what Christmas tree? Because I'm not seeing any Christmas tree hanging around. They're talking about the little connection that we refer to as a pigtail. So you have to get accustomed to that. And another thing, some persons call a gown. We call it the gown and they call it Johnny. And that is in like the state of Maine. So that was another thing. Like somebody would be like, pass me the Johnny. And I'm like, okay, then what's a Johnny? And they're like, a gown? And even when you say a gown, they're not even so sure sometimes what you're talking about. You have to literally sit down in the G, a gown, for them to actually, understand that gown and gown is the same thing. But, as I say, you just have to understand that different places, they use the same word, but how they put an accent to it, how they say it is a total different interpretation. And so you just have to understand how things are when you're transitioning. Read upon different places you'll be going, what is the norm there, what is considered to be not the norm. And so that way when you get there, you can feel a little bit more comfortable transitioning into your role. Sometimes you might have like a little community of like international nurses that will also be beneficial. So if you find other persons from different places, even if it's not from your country itself, finding other persons who are dealing or going through the same thing that you're dealing with, you can create a bond, a relationship, a community in your little area. And so from there, you'll feel a little bit more at ease, and the homesick will not be that bad. Because as I say, you'll be sharing different, meals, interacting, listening to music, and just meeting up as a group. So that way, each person is not feeling too isolated or homesick at the end of the day. Sometimes, communities also, because they know that they have like, international nurses, they tend to put things in place for international nurses, community groups where they meet up, and then, they try to have you integrate into, one and two different roles, or they try to encourage you to get, get into the habit of probably like say buying a house so that you can actually build and be a part of the actual community there. And so that is something that is good. So, also the facilities that you work at, a lot of times they have like International Nurses Day or international days where, everybody will bring their different special pot from their home with their culture's meal, and then they will share it listen to music and interact with each other. So that was just one thing that, I experienced as well. But the thing about it is that, you see, even though cultural transitioning is very challenging and, it has its ups and downs, the thing about it is that you're still able to, adapt, you're still able to change certain things so you can actually be a little bit more comfortable. And so one thing that you have to ensure that you as an individual possess is, the ability to adapt to the different changes. You have to be just open-minded, because if you're not open-minded about, what what is out there, then you'll find yourself a little bit more isolated, or you might find yourself feeling depressed, or your anxiety might just get a little bit worse because you're not able to interact and create relationship with other persons. And so that can be a problem for you if you're not in the habit of trying to make the necessary changes in your situation. So as I say, it's important that you build relationship, you build rapport with persons, and that's how you will be able to confidently navigate through your community, your healthcare system, a little bit more comfortable as you transition as a nurse here. I do hope that you find this information very beneficial, and if you have any questions, as I said, just leave them in the comment box below. And please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel, and turn that notification bell on for more. And remember to give it a thumbs up. All right, until then, thank you so much for tuning in, and I do hope that you will have a wonderful day. Bye.